the cold steel of a boot pressed against Jalin Hunter's temple, forcing his head toward the unforgiving concrete of the Milfield prison yard. "On your knees, boy! Lick my boots clean like a good little slave," Derek Collins sneered, his spit landing on Jalin's face, a grotesque anointing amidst the savage laughter of 200 inmates. Derek, a white supremacist and the self-proclaimed overlord of Milfield's most profitable cell blocks, reveled in the spectacle. "That's what your kind was made for, serving your betters." The words, amplified for every illicit phone camera to capture, hung heavy in the air, a declaration of absolute dominance. Jalin knelt motionless, a picture of unsettling stillness. No tears, no desperate pleas, just controlled breathing and a profound patience that resonated in his dark eyes. He studied Derek's stance, measuring something the bully, blinded by his own hubris, couldn't comprehend. Derek Collins had inadvertently cornered not a victim, but a predator of a different order. This dangerous calm, a silence that promised future, calculated violence, was a hallmark of Jalin's true nature, hidden beneath a veneer of quiet compliance. Milfield Correctional Facility, a sprawling complex of concrete and razor wire, spanned 37 acres of Ohio farmland. It caged 2,400 of America's most dangerous men within a labyrinth of steel and despair. The yard, a microcosm of the facility's brutal hierarchy, was divided into invisible territories, demarcated by blood and reputation. Cell blocks A and B belonged to the Black Disciples, while the Latino gangs controlled the vital arteries of the kitchen and laundry. Yet, Derek Collins commanded the most valuable real estate, blocks C and D, where commissary money flowed freely and the vulnerable were systematically devoured. Jalin, Ghost Hunter, a 32-year-old with the quiet intensity of a man burdened by profound secrets, belonged to none of these established worlds. His official paperwork listed a seemingly straightforward charge of assault, 18 months for defending his sister from a home invasion. What it failed to detail was the unprecedented nature of the injuries sustained by the two gang members who died that night, a forensic puzzle the police had never encountered. In his Spartan cell, Jalin consumed philosophy books, while his bunkmate, Tommy Nguyen, a tech-savvy cyber fraud convict serving 3 years, coded on a contraband tablet. Tommy possessed an acute observational skill, noticing Jalin's disciplined routine. 500 perfect push-ups every morning at precisely 0500 hours, executed without a sound. He moved through the prison corridors with the fluidity of water, purposeful, yet almost invisible. "You military?" Tommy once inquired. "Something like that," was Jalin's understated reply. Tommy, a connoisseur of discipline, recognized it instantly, but Jalin's meticulousness felt different, deeper, like observing a finely tuned weapon masquerading as a man. Derek Collins, a figure hardened by 12 years within the carceral system, had built his empire on a brutally simple yet corporatized principle: identify the weak, break their spirit, and profit from their desperation. At 38, Derek was a formidable presence, 6'2" and 220 pounds of prison-forged muscle and unadulterated hatred, his neck adorned with swastika tattoos that crawled like poisonous vines. His operation, a chilling mimicry of corporate efficiency, extracted a welcome tax of $50 from new inmates, followed by weekly protection fees ranging from $25 to $100, calibrated to individual vulnerability. Refusal to pay resulted in escalating violence, administered by his crew of 8 enforcers, always stopping just shy of attracting official attention that could threaten his syndicate. The guards, including Warden Patricia Steele, were keenly aware of Derek's activities, but his network of corruption ran deep. 3 guards were on his payroll, 1 administrator owed significant gambling debts, and a medical staff member reliably documented training accidents instead of assault injuries. Officer Luis Martinez, a 20-year veteran and former Army Ranger, represented the beleaguered minority of honest guards trapped in this systemic rot. He watched Derek's operation with growing disgust, but lacked the irrefutable evidence to dismantle it. Jake Morrison, Derek's lieutenant, managed the day-to-day operations. Shorter than Derek but twice as vicious, Jake savored the psychological aspects of breaking inmates. He meticulously studied each new arrival, identifying vulnerabilities through family photos, personal items, anything that revealed a chink in their emotional armor. When Jalen arrived 4 weeks prior, Jake's assessment was immediate and seemingly textbook. College boy, quiet type, no gang connections, perfect victim. They were profoundly wrong about everything, save for Jalen's quiet demeanor. Jalen spent his days in the prison library, a converted storage room furnished with donated books and broken chairs. While other inmates vied for basketball courts and weight equipment, he immersed himself in philosophy, psychology, and military history. Mrs. Lane, the librarian and Tommy's aunt, who had secured him the library job, noticed his distinctive reading patterns. "You're studying them?" she observed one afternoon, nodding toward the yard where Derek's crew systematically shook down a terrified 18-year-old. Jalen offered no denial. Know your environment, understand the threat. What Mrs. Lane did not know was that Jalen's true education had unfolded in places most Americans couldn't pronounce. For 8 years, he had moved through hostile territories where a single mistake meant death, where silence was survival, and violence, when necessary, was deployed with surgical precision. His cell reflected this discipline. No personal items save a single photo of his deceased sister, Maria. His few possessions were arranged with military exactitude, clean, functional, and prepared for rapid movement. Tommy observed Jalen's evening routine with fascination. The way he checked lock mechanisms, memorized guard rotations, mapped sightlines, and camera positions. Most inmates adapted to prison. Jalen analyzed it like a battlefield. "Are you planning something?" Tommy eventually asked. Jalen closed his book, Sun Tzu's Art of War, and met his cellmate's eyes. "In war, patience is the deadliest weapon." Neither man realized that across the prison, Derek Collins was orchestrating Jalen's final, public humiliation. Tomorrow, the real war was set to begin. Day 7 in Milfield marked a stark escalation. Jalen returned from his library shift to discover his cell transformed into a crime scene. His philosophy books lay torn in half, pages scattered like confetti. The sole photograph of his sister, Maria, her face slashed with a razor blade, sat propped against his pillow, a chilling, personal threat. His toothbrush floated in the toilet, his few possessions destroyed with methodical cruelty. Derek Collins leaned against the cell doorframe, flanked by 3 enforcers, while Jake Morrison tossed Jalen's ripped mattress pad into the hallway. "Welcome tax," Derek announced with practiced authority, his voice a low growl. $75 a week, due every Friday. Jalen's jaw tightened as he carefully picked up Maria's defiled photograph. His sister had died 6 months prior from cervical cancer at 28. This photo was all he had left. "I don't have any money," he stated quietly. Derek's crew erupted in laughter. "Then you work it off, college boy," Jake sneered. "Kitchen detail, cleaning our cells, washing our underwear, whatever we say, whenever we say it." Derek stepped closer, his breath reeking of contraband alcohol. "Books and big words won't protect you here. You think you're better than us because you can read?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Jalen's training screamed tactical solutions. Derek's stance was amateurish. Weight forward, chin exposed, hands loose at his sides. In a different world, Jalen could incapacitate all 4 men in under 8 seconds without breaking a sweat. But prison operated by different rules than the battlefield. "And if you snitch," Derek continued, drawing a sharpened fingernail slowly across his own throat, "well, accidents happen every day here. New fish disappear all the time." Officer Martinez appeared at the end of the corridor, forcing Derek's crew to scatter like roaches. He surveyed the destroyed cell but arrived too late to witness any direct threats. "Everything okay here, Hunter?" Martinez asked, his gaze lingering. Derek smirked from 10 feet away, confident in his system's protection. "Just getting acquainted," Jalin replied, his voice steady despite the raw violence of the situation. That night, Tommy helped him clean up the wreckage. "They're testing you, man. Show weakness once, you're prey forever." Jalin stared at his sister's ruined face in the photograph. In Afghanistan, enemies who targeted civilian families rarely lived to regret it. But this was not Kandahar. This was a different kind of war zone, with different rules of engagement. The fundamental question remained, how long could a predator convincingly pretend to be prey? Week 2 brought systematic psychological warfare. Jalin's work assignments mysteriously changed overnight. Kitchen duty morphed into scrubbing toilets with his bare hands. Library privileges transformed into mopping floors, while Derek's crew deliberately tracked mud across his freshly cleaned work. Each task was meticulously designed to strip away dignity, one humiliation at a time. "Faster, boy," Jake Morrison commanded, watching Jalin clean their cell block bathroom. "My grandmother scrubs better than you, and she's been dead for 10 years. The crew erupted in laughter, but Jalin continued working, devoid of any discernible reaction. This profound calm infuriated them more than tears or rage ever could. Derek studied his new victim from the shadows. 12 years of breaking inmates had taught him to read weakness like a roadmap. Fear manifested in stuttering speech and nervous glances. Desperation revealed itself through bargaining and pleading. Yet, Jalin displayed neither. "Something's off about this one," Derek confided to Jake during their evening cell block meeting. "Most guys either swing on us by now or start crying for their mothers. This college boy just watches like he's taking notes." Jake shrugged. "Maybe he's just stupid. Some of these educated types freeze up when real violence comes calling." But Derek's predator instincts whispered otherwise. Week 3 escalated to public theater. During mandatory yard time, Derek orchestrated Jalin's ultimate degradation before 200 witnesses. He cornered Jalin near the basketball court, a strategic location where cameras could not capture audio, but every inmate could observe the spectacle. "You've been disrespecting me, boy," Derek announced loudly enough for the growing crowd to hear. "Time to apologize properly." He forced Jalin to his knees on the concrete, pressing down on his shoulders until Jalin was eye level with Derek's crotch. The symbolism was painfully clear to everyone watching. "Say you're sorry for thinking you're better than us," Derek commanded. "I'm sorry," Jalin replied without hesitation. But something unsettling occurred. While his voice conveyed submission, his eyes remained steady, calculating, like a sniper acquiring target data through a scope. Several inmates exchanged uneasy glances. Broken men typically shook with fear or rage. This one looked as if he were memorizing Derek's vulnerabilities for future reference. Week 4 brought Derek's protection racket into full play. "I'm gonna help you out, college boy," Derek said during lunch, sliding into the seat opposite Jalin. "These other gangs have been talking about you, saying you think you're special. Lucky for you, I can provide protection." His offer came with a steep price tag, $150 weekly. When Jalin quietly declined, Derek's insurance policy activated. 3 MS-13 members cornered Jalin during dinner, shoving him and deliberately spilling his tray. Right on cue, Derek appeared, ostensibly to rescue him from the staged harassment. "See what happens when you don't have proper protection?" Derek asked afterward. But Jalin's reaction confounded everyone involved. Instead of gratitude or fear, he studied the staged attack like a tactician analyzing enemy movement patterns. His questions were too specific, too tactical. How did they know I'd be walking that route? Who told them my schedule? Derek dismissed the questions as paranoia, but Jake Morrison felt a chill of unease. Week 5 intensified the psychological warfare. Derek's crew propagated the deadliest rumor in prison, that Jalin was a child molester. The accusations spread through the facility like wildfire, instantly transforming Jalin into an outcast. Inmates who once ignored him now openly threatened violence. His table in the chow hall emptied. Guards received anonymous tips about his suspicious behavior. Most inmates facing such accusations either requested protective custody or suffered brutal vigilante justice. Jalan did neither. He handled the profound isolation with the same eerie calm that was beginning to unnerve even Derek's most loyal followers. Tommy Nguyen became his sole ally, a decision that required considerable courage. "They're trying to get you killed," Tommy warned during their nightly conversation. "I know," Jalan replied, never looking up from his book on asymmetric warfare. "Doesn't that scare you?" "Fear is a luxury I can't afford." The response chilled Tommy more than any threat ever could. Unknown to Derek, Jalan was treating this harassment like a meticulously planned covert operation. He mapped the prison's intricate power structure with military precision, guard rotations memorized to the minute, camera blind spots identified and cataloged, Derek's daily patterns meticulously documented in a mental file that would impress Pentagon analysts. Tommy, leveraging his cyber background, digitally documented everything on his contraband tablet: financial flows, corruption networks, communication patterns. Together, they constructed an intelligence profile that would make the CIA proud. Yet, Jalan's facade of calm required increasing effort. During his weekly phone calls to his Aunt Rosa, his only remaining family, she noticed a subtle strain creeping into his voice. "Mijo, you sound different. What's happening there?" He couldn't tell her. He couldn't explain that every day demanded the self-control that had once enabled him to survive behind enemy lines. The critical difference was that in Afghanistan, he could eliminate threats permanently. Here, fighting back meant losing everything. "I'm fine, Tia, just counting down the days." But they both knew he was lying. Derek's growing obsession with breaking Jalan became deeply personal. Late at night, he shared his frustration with Jake Morrison in hushed tones that carried through the concrete walls. 12 years I've been perfecting this system. Hundreds of inmates broken and rebuilt in my image. I can crack anyone within a month, but this guy, it's like trying to intimidate a mountain." Jake suggested escalating to serious violence, but Derek shook his head. "Not yet. I want to understand what makes him tick first. Then I'll break whatever that is." What Derek didn't realize was that across the cell block, Jalan lay awake, listening to every word through ventilation shafts that carried sound like telephone wires. His acoustic surveillance skills, honed in Afghan caves, worked perfectly within American concrete. He knew Derek's next move before Derek did. Week 6 brought the physical escalation Jalan had been preparing for. Derek cornered him in the shower area. No cameras, no witnesses except Jake Morrison and 2 other enforcers. The perfect kill zone. "I'm done playing games, college boy," Derek hissed, pressing a sharpened spoon against Jalan's throat. "You pay up, or tomorrow they find you hanging in your cell." For the first time, Jalan's body subtly betrayed him. His hands shifted almost imperceptibly into a combat stance. His breathing changed from normal to tactical. Muscle memory from 1,000 life-or-death situations kicked in automatically. Derek noticed the shift but misinterpreted it completely. Finally showing some fear. Good. Fear keeps you alive here. If only he knew that Jalan's shift wasn't fear. It was target acquisition. The predator was done pretending to be prey. 300 hours. Cell block C slept in uneasy silence. Tommy Nguyen lay awake, listening to Jalan's controlled breathing in the bunk below. For 6 weeks, he had watched his cellmate endure systematic torture with inhuman patience. Tonight felt different, dangerous. "You're not sleeping either," Jalan whispered. Tommy sat up. "Derek's planning something big. My sources in the kitchen say he's been asking about your schedule, when you shower, when you're alone." In the darkness, Jalan finally spoke the truth that had been eating at him for weeks. 8 years, Navy SEAL Team 6, call sign, Ghost, 47 successful operations across 12 countries. His voice carried the weight of classified nightmares. I could end Derek and his entire crew without breaking a sweat. Tommy's blood ran cold. Then why haven't you? Because this isn't Afghanistan. In here, winning a fight means losing everything else. But Tommy heard something new in Jalen's voice, a decision crystallizing. What if there was a way to win without losing? Tommy asked carefully. Jalen turned toward him in the darkness. I'm listening. Let Derek make his move publicly. Let him be the aggressor on camera. Then you defend yourself with exactly enough force to stop him. No more, no less. And if I misjudge the force? Then Derek learns why they called you Ghost. For the first time in weeks, Jalen allowed himself a grim smile. Tommy? Yeah? Tomorrow, stay far away from Derek Collins. 2:47 p.m. The equipment shed behind Milfield's main yard sat in a perfect blind spot, 30 seconds from the nearest guard tower, devoid of security cameras, isolated enough for Derek's final solution. Jalen stood alone by the rusted weight equipment, seemingly absorbed in reading Miyamoto Musashi's Book of Five Rings. The irony was not lost on him. A 17th century samurai's wisdom on confronting 21st century brutality. Derek approached with his four deadliest enforcers. Jake Morrison flanked his right, short, vicious, hungry for blood. Carlos Vega, representing the MS-13 Alliance, was quick with a blade, quicker with rage. Tommy Wright brought Aryan Brotherhood muscle, 6'3" of prison-forged hatred. Dean Foster served as Derek's personal bodyguard, 6'4", 250 pounds of pure intimidation. They moved like apex predators closing in on cornered prey. Unknown to Derek, 12 inmates had strategically positioned themselves throughout the yard. Tommy Nguyen's network, each carrying contraband recording devices. The ambush was about to become a documentary. Time's up, college boy. Derek's voice cut through the afternoon air like a death sentence. He shoved Jalen hard enough to send the book flying 15 feet across the concrete. You owe me $500 now. Interest and penalties included. Inmates began gathering, sensing the inevitable violence. The prison yard's unwritten law: witness everything, remember nothing, survive another day. Get on your knees one last time, Derek commanded, loud enough for every phone camera to capture. Beg real pretty, and maybe I'll only break both your arms instead of your neck. Jalen looked up from the scattered pages of his book. For 6 weeks, he had endured systematic humiliation with inhuman patience. But something fundamental shifted in his dark eyes. The prey stopped pretending. I'm done kneeling, he said quietly. Derek's face twisted with rage. Wrong answer, boy. He swung a massive right hook aimed at Jalen's temple, a knockout punch thrown with 12 years of prison yard brutality behind it. Time slowed to combat speed. Seconds 1 to 3, Ghost Protocol activated. Jalen slipped the punch with minimal movement, a textbook seal evasion technique that made Derek's fist pass through empty air like grasping at smoke. Derek's momentum carried him forward, completely off balance, his weight distribution destroyed. Jalen's counter was surgical precision disguised as street fighting. A short uppercut to Derek's solar plexus, precisely enough force to collapse his diaphragm without causing permanent organ damage. Derek doubled over, gasping like a drowning man. The watching inmates froze in shock. Prison fights were typically brutal slugfests. This looked like choreography. Seconds 4 to 6. The cascade effect. Jake Morrison lunged forward as Derek staggered backward. Jalen performed a perfect leg sweep that sent Jake crashing into concrete with bone-jarring impact. Before Jake could recover, Jalen delivered a precise elbow strike to his temple, a seal technique designed to incapacitate without killing. Jake dropped unconscious, blood trickling from his nose. 2 down, 3 to go. Seconds, 7 to 9. Double elimination. Carlos Vega and Tommy Wright attacked simultaneously from opposite flanks, standard prison mob tactics designed to overwhelm through numbers. But they had never faced someone who earned the call sign Ghost by making enemies disappear. Jalen seemed to vanish between them, using their momentum against each other in a display of tactical movement that defied physics. A perfectly timed duck caused them to collide head-first with a sickening impact. As they staggered apart, dazed and confused, Jalan delivered simultaneous strikes, a palm strike to Carlos's nose, breaking it with a wet crack, and a knee strike to Tommy's ribs, fracturing two with precise force. Both men collapsed, clutching their injuries. Seconds 10 to 12, psychological domination. Dean Foster, Derek's biggest enforcer, charged like an enraged bull. At 6'4" and 250 flams, he was accustomed to intimidating through size alone. Most inmates scattered when Dean attacked. Jalan sidestepped with fluid grace that made the giant look clumsy. He grabbed Dean's extended arm and performed a textbook joint lock that sent the massive enforcer crashing face first into concrete. Dean hit the ground like a falling tree. In the final second, Jalan stood over Derek, who remained doubled over and gasping for air. The entire fight lasted 12 seconds. 5 men down, 4 unconscious, 1 struggling to breathe. Jalan hadn't even broken a sweat. The aftermath. Total elapsed time, 12 seconds. The gathered inmates stood in stunned silence. Phone cameras captured every frame of the most one-sided fight in Milfield's violent history. "Jesus Christ," someone whispered. "That wasn't human." Word spread through the prison like wildfire. Inmates who witnessed the execution described it in hushed, reverent tones that transformed fact into legend. "Dude moved like water, hit like lightning. Derek's crew never had a chance. It was like watching a ghost tear through shadows." Guards arrived as Derek's crew began regaining consciousness. Officer Martinez led the response team, his military training instantly recognizing professional combat techniques. The security footage, which Tommy had ensured would capture everything, clearly showed Derek as the aggressor. Jalan had defended himself with surgical restraint, not once striking after an opponent was down, textbook legitimate self-defense. Derek spent 3 days in medical observation with bruised ribs and utterly shattered pride. For 12 years, he had ruled Milfield through fear and brutality. In 12 seconds, one quiet inmate had destroyed his reputation completely. His crew members began questioning everything. How did their supposedly invincible leader lose so completely to someone half his size? What else had Derek been wrong about? The viral element spread through prison networks faster than contraband drugs. Tommy's hidden recordings captured everything in stunning clarity. Within hours, inmates began calling Jalan Ghost after hearing whispered rumors about his military background. Respect in prison was earned through strength. Jalan had just demonstrated strength beyond anything they had ever witnessed. He returned to his cell to find his commissary account mysteriously filled with credits, anonymous gifts from inmates who had witnessed his fight. Gang leaders who had previously ignored him now nodded respectfully when he passed. Even rival factions showed deference to the man who had dismantled Derek's empire in 12 seconds. Tommy greeted him with nervous excitement. "Bro, you just changed the entire power structure of this place. Derek's finished, but now everyone's going to want to test the new top dog." Jalan sat on his bunk, picking up his scattered book. The pages about strategy and patience fluttered in the evening breeze through their cell window. "In the SEALs, we had a saying," he told Tommy quietly. "The only easy day was yesterday." He paused, studying a passage about knowing when to reveal your true nature. Derek thought he was hunting a sheep. He just learned he was stalking a wolf. But even as inmates celebrated Derek's downfall, Jalan knew the real war was just beginning. A wounded predator is often the most dangerous kind, and Derek Collins had 12 years of corruption to call upon for revenge. 3 days after the 12-second execution, Derek Collins played his deadliest card. Warden Patricia Steele called Jalan to her office for what appeared to be a routine disciplinary hearing. But when Jalan entered the sterile conference room, Derek sat across from the warden's desk, his face still bruised, his demeanor carefully crafted to appear reasonable and victimized. 3 inmates flanked Derek like loyal soldiers, Tony Ritchie, serving time for armed robbery. Mike Santos in for aggravated assault. David Kim, convicted of extortion. All were coached to perfection, all terrified of crossing Derek's remaining network. Mr. Hunter, Warden Steele began, reviewing a thick file. You're facing serious charges of assault with a deadly weapon. Jalen's confusion was genuine. I don't understand. I defended myself. Derek's performance began with Oscar-worthy precision. His voice modulated to sound concerned rather than vengeful, reasonable rather than racist. Ma'am, this man is extremely dangerous. He attacked me and my friends without any provocation whatsoever. Derek touched his bruised ribs gingerly. We were simply discussing commissary privileges when he exploded into violence like some kind of trained killer. The three inmates nodded in synchronized agreement, their testimony rehearsed to the syllable. Hunter confronted Derek, demanding respect. Tony Ritchie lied smoothly. When Derek refused to acknowledge his superiority, Hunter attacked like a wild animal. I've never seen anything like it, Mike Santos added. The man fought like he had military training or something. David Kim delivered the killing blow. He threatened to kill all of us if we reported him, said he knew ways to make people disappear. Derek presented his manufactured evidence with clinical precision. Medical documentation showing injuries to 5 men, photographed from angles that maximized apparent damage. Witness statements sworn under oath, all supporting identical narratives that supposedly happened from different vantage points. But Derek's external network provided the most devastating attack. His cousin, Rachel Collins, a reporter for Channel 7 News, received an anonymous tip that morning about extreme prison violence involving a former military operative. The story wrote itself. Ex-SEAL continues deadly violence behind bars. The news segment aired at noon, exploding across social media within minutes. Comments poured in, condemning Jalen as a trained killer who belonged in solitary forever. His military background, once a symbol of service, became twisted into evidence of his violent nature and inability to integrate into civilian society. The narrative ignored context, self-defense, or Derek's 12-year criminal history. Public opinion crystallized around a simple, dangerous story. A dangerous veteran attacks innocent inmates. Jalen's overworked public defender, Sarah Martinez, no relation to Officer Martinez, reviewed the case with growing despair. The evidence appeared overwhelming. 5 injured men, multiple witness statements, medical documentation, and Jalen's military combat training serving as proof of his enhanced capacity for violence. They're offering a plea deal, Sarah explained during their brief consultation. 6 months in solitary confinement, 3 additional years on your sentence, permanent restriction from the general population. And if I fight it, federal charges for assault with deadly weapons. Your hands are classified as such due to military training. We're looking at 15 to 25 years of additional time. Derek's isolation strategy became chillingly clear. Destroy Jalen legally, eliminate him from the general population permanently, and ensure his silence through overwhelming consequences. If Jalen fought the charges, Derek would escalate by claiming death threats using SEAL assassination techniques. Transferred to solitary confinement pending investigation, Jalen faced his darkest hour. The cramped concrete cell measured 6 by 9 feet, smaller than some closets. No windows, no human contact, 23 hours of isolation daily. Everything he worked for, serving his time, quietly returning to his Aunt Rosa, rebuilding his life, all crumbled around him, destroyed by a system he once swore to protect. But across the facility, unlikely allies mobilized. Tommy Nguyen began cyber reconnaissance, leveraging his hacking skills and illicit access to prison computer systems. Within hours, he uncovered Derek's pattern. 3 other inmates had faced identical accusations in the past 2 years, complete with the same witness statements, the same medical photographer, and the same corrupt system protecting Derek's operations. Officer Martinez, driven by military instincts that recognized something fundamentally wrong, initiated his own investigation. His Army Ranger background had taught him to read tactical movements. Jalen's defensive techniques were professional, controlled, restrained. Derek's crew, by contrast, had attacked like amateur thugs. Martinez reviewed months of security footage, searching for patterns. He discovered Derek's systematic approach, staging conflicts, coaching witnesses, using the same corrupt medical staff member to document injuries from specific angles that maximized apparent damage. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Tommy's cyber investigation revealed Derek's financial records through the prison's administrative system. Derek had been receiving regular money transfers that coincided perfectly with various incidents, clear evidence of systematic extortion. More damaging were encrypted communications between Derek and corrupt guards discussing problem inmates and coordination of disciplinary actions. Email timestamps aligned exactly with previous false accusations. Derek's own words convicted him. The ghost needs to disappear permanently. Arrange the usual witnesses and make sure the medical photos look bad. Meanwhile, Derek grew increasingly confident as Jalen's hearing approached. He celebrated with his remaining crew, already planning how to expand operations into Jalen's empty cell block territory. 12 years perfecting this system, Derek bragged to Jake Morrison, who was still nursing a concussion from the fight. No college boy ghost is going to destroy what I built. But Martinez and Tommy secretly coordinated their evidence gathering. They realized they had enough to expose Derek's entire corruption network: financial fraud, witness intimidation, guard bribery, systematic extortion affecting dozens of inmates over multiple years. The night before Jalen's hearing, Derek made a crucial mistake. Drunk on contraband alcohol and confident in his victory, he called his cousin Rachel to coordinate additional media coverage. The prison, unbeknownst to him, recorded all phone calls, and Derek's intoxicated confession provided devastating evidence. Make sure your story emphasizes how dangerous these military types are in civilian settings, Derek slurred into the phone. We can't have people thinking inmates can fight back against legitimate authority figures like myself. Unknown to Derek, Officer Martinez had been monitoring his communications for weeks. Alone in solitary confinement, Jalen practiced meditation techniques that had once calmed him before dangerous missions. Tomorrow, he would face his most important battle without weapons, without backup, armed only with truth. But truth, as he had learned in Afghanistan, is often the deadliest weapon of all. The question remained, would it be enough to overcome 12 years of systematic corruption? As dawn approached, both men prepared for a confrontation that would determine not just Jalen's fate, but the entire future of Milfield Correctional Facility. Derek had spent 12 years building his empire. Jalen had spent 12 seconds destroying it. Now they would discover which foundation proved stronger, corruption or justice. The disciplinary hearing room felt like a grim courtroom, a place where justice often came to die. Harsh fluorescent lights cast everything in a sickly yellow hue. Present were Warden Steele, Deputy Warden James Harrison, Jalen's attorney Sarah Martinez, Derek Collins with his 3 coached witnesses, and, unexpectedly, Officer Martinez, carrying a thick folder that made Derek's eyes narrow with the first hint of genuine concern. Derek took the stand first, his testimony polished through years of practice in destroying innocent lives. Ma'am, I was simply trying to help Mr. Hunter adjust to prison life when he attacked me without warning. Derek's voice carried manufactured sincerity. I've seen military guys struggle with civilian incarceration before. They can't tell the difference between combat zones and correctional facilities. His coached witnesses performed flawlessly. Tony Ritchie described identical events from his vantage point. Mike Santos corroborated every detail with suspicious precision. David Kim added emotional weight about feeling terrorized by Hunter's military training. Derek presented his manufactured evidence like a prosecutor seeking the death penalty. Medical photographs showing extensive injuries, witness statements sworn under oath. His trump card, a psychological evaluation from Dr. Reynolds, the corrupt prison psychologist, declaring Jalen extremely dangerous due to military conditioning that prevents distinguishing between battlefield and civilian environments. Sarah Martinez mounted her defense with limited ammunition. She presented Jalen's exemplary military service record: 8 years of distinguished service, multiple commendations, psychological evaluations showing perfect mental health. She emphasized his clean prison record and cooperative behavior since arrival. But without concrete evidence against Derek, it became one man's word against multiple accusers, backed by medical documentation and expert testimony. Warden Steele reviewed the evidence with growing frustration. Her instincts screamed that Derek was lying, but the paper trail appeared overwhelming. 12 years of Derek's careful relationship building with staff had created an institutional bias in his favor. Then, Officer Martinez stood. "Warden, I request permission to present evidence relevant to this case." Derek's face flashed micro-expressions of concern, enough for Jalen, trained in reading enemy tells, to recognize Derek's first crack of genuine fear. "This had better be substantial, Officer Martinez," Warden Steele warned. Martinez opened his folder like a prosecuting attorney, revealing smoking gun evidence. "Ma'am, I've documented systematic fraud spanning 18 months. He presented security footage from multiple incidents showing Derek's crew targeting vulnerable inmates using identical tactics. The pattern was undeniable: staged confrontations, coached witnesses, systematic extortion, followed by false accusations. When victims resisted, the room's atmosphere shifted dramatically. Derek's witnesses exchanged nervous glances. Martinez continued with devastating precision. Financial forensics revealed Derek's commissary accounts receiving regular deposits from multiple sources. Classic extortion evidence. Money trails connect to 6 different victims who filed complaints after refusing to pay Derek's protection taxes. Tommy Nguyen's cyber research, presented through Martinez, exposed encrypted communications between Derek and corrupt guards. Email timestamps aligned perfectly with previous false accusations. Derek's own words convicted him. "Schedule the usual disciplinary action for the college boy. Make sure medical documents the injuries properly. The ghost needs permanent removal. Coordinate witness statements. Another military type causing problems. Handle it like we did with Rodriguez last year." As evidence mounted systematically, Derek's psychological facade began cracking. His confident posture shifted to defensive. Clenched jaw, rapid blinking, fidgeting hands. Jalen, trained to read psychological pressure during interrogations, recognized Derek's growing desperation. Martinez delivered the killing blow. "We've been monitoring Derek's communications for weeks. His witnesses were questioned separately yesterday. Their stories collapsed completely when examined individually, revealing coached testimony and intimidation tactics. Derek's 3 witnesses suddenly found reasons to study their shoes rather than maintain eye contact. Furthermore," Martinez continued, "we searched Derek's cell this morning. We found detailed notes about targeting specific inmates, stolen commissary items worth thousands, contraband alcohol, and most damaging, a trophy collection of personal items taken from his victims." He produced evidence bags containing dozens of photographs, letters, and personal items stolen from inmates over the years, including the destroyed photo of Jalen's sister, Maria. Cornered and desperate, Derek abandoned his victim facade completely. "This is all lies," he exploded, revealing his true nature for the first time. "They're setting me up because I exposed their drug operation." He pointed accusingly at Jalen. "He's planning to kill guards. He's making weapons. He threatened my family." The transformation was complete. From reasonable victim to raging psychopath in seconds. Warden Steele stared in shock. Deputy Warden Harrison reached for his radio. The 3 witnesses began backing away from Derek like he was radioactive. Jalen spoke for the first time, his voice carrying the calm authority of someone who had faced death and survived. "You made one mistake, Derek." His words cut through the chaos like a blade. "You thought I was just another victim, but I've spent 8 years protecting people from predators exactly like you." He paused, letting the weight of truth settle. "The only difference is that over there, I was allowed to put them down permanently." Derek's complete psychological breakdown shattered 12 years of carefully constructed facades. The weight of total exposure destroyed everything he had built through fear and manipulation. "You think you're special?" Derek screamed, spittle flying from his mouth. "I've broken dozens of inmates like you. Everyone knows what I do. Guards, administration, even previous wardens. And they let me because I keep order. I am the order in this place." His confession implicated numerous staff members and revealed systematic corruption spanning multiple administrations. The disciplinary hearing instantly became grounds for a federal investigation. Throughout Derek's breakdown, Jalin remained seated, unmoved by threats and rage. The contrast was stark. Derek's loss of control versus Jalin's unwavering composure. Derek's power came from intimidation. Jalin's strength came from inner discipline forged in places where weakness meant death. In complete psychological collapse, Derek lunged across the table at Jalin, screaming incoherently about killing him and his entire family. Guards restrained him, but Jalin didn't even flinch. He simply watched Derek's mental disintegration with the same calm he once used to observe enemy positions through rifle scopes. Derek was immediately placed in solitary confinement pending federal criminal charges. His entire network of corrupt guards and staff members faced termination and prosecution. All charges against Jalin were dropped immediately. More importantly, Warden Steele issued a public apology and announced a comprehensive investigation into institutional corruption. As the room emptied, Jalin sat alone for a moment, reflecting on a truth learned in military service. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from defeating enemies, but from having the patience to let them defeat themselves. Derek had spent 12 years building an empire on fear. Jalin destroyed it by refusing to be afraid. Derek Collins's empire crumbled in 72 hours. Federal charges rained down like artillery fire: racketeering, extortion, civil rights violations, conspiracy, witness intimidation. His potential sentence: life without parole plus 150 years. The investigation revealed his network had stolen $2.3 million from inmates and their families over 12 years. 8 guards received termination notices. 3 faced criminal prosecution. The corrupt medical staff member who documented fake injuries fled to Mexico before arrest warrants arrived. But Derek's downfall triggered something unprecedented in Milfield's violent history. Jalin Hunter transformed from victim to informal leader overnight. Gang members who once ignored him now sought his mediation for disputes. His reputation for fairness and refusal to abuse newfound power earned respect across all racial lines. Even hardened lifers nodded respectfully when he passed. "You could run this place," Tommy Nguyen observed during their evening conversation. "Every faction would follow you." Jalin shook his head, focused on his philosophy book. Leading through fear is Derek's way. Real leaders create better people, not more followers. He began conducting what he called tactical awareness classes in the library, but instead of teaching combat, he focused on conflict de-escalation and strategic thinking. Real strength, he told his growing group of students, is knowing you could hurt someone and choosing not to. Any fool can throw a punch. It takes a warrior to walk away. His first student surprised everyone: Jake Morrison, Derek's former lieutenant. "I spent 3 years following a psychopath," Jake confessed during their first session. "Teach me how to be better than what I was." Tommy used his cyber skills to establish a prisoner rights advocacy program, creating secure channels for inmates to report abuse without retaliation. His meticulous documentation of Derek's crimes became a template for investigating similar corruption nationwide. Officer Martinez received a promotion to Chief of Internal Affairs, tasked with creating oversight systems that prevented future Derek Collinses. His courage in exposing corruption, despite personal risk, became a model for ethical law enforcement. He implemented Hunter protocols, systematic protection for inmates who reported abuse, anonymous tip systems, and mandatory body cameras for all guard interactions. Warden Steele partnered with Jalin to revolutionize Milfield's approach. Inmates with special skills became peer counselors and conflict mediators. Violence decreased 67% in 6 months. Educational program enrollment increased 234%. "You've done something I thought impossible," Steele told Jalin during their monthly meeting. "You've made them believe change is possible." The transformation spread beyond Milfield's walls. Jalin's Aunt Rosa, inspired by her nephew's strength, enrolled in law school, specializing in prison reform and veterans' rights. Their weekly phone conversations shifted from worry to strategic planning for helping other military families navigate the criminal justice system. "Mijo, you've found your mission again," she told him. "Not destroying enemies this time, but building allies." Derek spent his remaining years in protective custody, transferred between facilities as his former empire dissolved completely. His crew members, freed from intimidation, testified against him in exchange for reduced sentences. The man who built power through fear died alone in the system he once controlled. As Jalin's release date approached, he reflected on an unexpected discovery. Prison, despite its horrors, had taught him something the military couldn't. Combat skills preserve life, but wisdom preserves souls. Fighting isn't about defeating opponents. It's about protecting principles and people who can't protect themselves. Jalin and Tommy designed the Silent Strength program, teaching young men that true power comes from discipline, patience, and knowing when to stand up versus when to walk away. The program gained support from military veterans, law enforcement, community leaders, and professional athletes. Media coverage transformed from condemning Jalin as a dangerous criminal to featuring him as a prison reform advocate. His story became a documentary highlighting the difference between legitimate self-defense and unjustified violence. 24 months after entering Milfield, Jalin walked through the gates to find hundreds of supporters waiting. Former inmates whose lives he had touched, guards who had witnessed his integrity, military veterans, community members inspired by his story. His transformation from victim to leader became a national example of redemption through discipline rather than revenge. Instead of returning to military contracting, Jalin opened the Ghost Tactical Community Center in his hometown. The facility taught martial arts, conflict resolution, and life skills to at-risk youth and veterans struggling with reintegration. Every session began with his core principle: learn to fight so you never have to. 5 years later, Jalin returned to Milfield as a guest speaker. The transformation was dramatic. Violence down 73%, educational enrollment up 289%, recidivism among program participants reduced to 8%. Standing in the same yard where Derek had once humiliated him, Jalin addressed a new group of incoming inmates. "You can let this place break you. You can use this time to break others. Or you can build something better. The choice is yours, but you don't have to make it alone." He paused, remembering his own journey from victim to survivor to protector. Real warriors don't create fear. They create hope. The circle completed, from hunted to hunter to healer. 7 years after Derek Collins's empire fell, the Silent Strength movement revolutionized American corrections. Jalin Hunter's approach now operated in 127 facilities across 47 states. Congressional hearings showcased documented success rates that forced federal policy changes. The Hunter Protocol became mandatory in all federal facilities, requiring military-style discipline and conflict resolution training. President Biden presented Jalin with the Presidential Medal of Freedom in a White House ceremony broadcast to millions. "This man transformed our understanding of what strength really means," the president announced. "He proved that real warriors protect people. They don't prey on them." In his acceptance speech, Jalin credited unexpected allies. "Tommy Nguyen taught me that intelligence beats brutality. Officer Martinez showed me that courage comes in many forms. Even Derek Collins served a purpose. He showed us what happens when we let hate win over hope." The most stunning transformation came from an unexpected source. Derek Collins, 9 years into his sentence, requested to meet Jalen during a prison visit. Genuine therapy and education had created profound change in the man who once ruled through terror. Their recorded conversation became a masterclass in redemption. "I spent 38 years angry at the world for being unfair to me," Derek said, his voice carrying genuine remorse. "Turns out I was unfair to other people who had to survive." Jalen studied the man who had once tried to destroy him. "We all have choices to make every day. You're making better ones now." "Too late for me to undo the damage," Derek replied. "But maybe it's not too late to help others avoid my mistakes." Derek now led anger management classes in his facility, using his own story as a cautionary tale about the destructive power of hatred. Director Ava DuVernay created Ghost, the Jalen Hunter story, a 3-part documentary featuring interviews with everyone involved. The series won Emmy, Peabody, and Academy Awards, becoming required viewing in police academies and military training programs worldwide. Universities studied the Milfield model as the gold standard for institutional reform. Jalen became a visiting professor at Harvard, Yale, and West Point, teaching courses on leadership under pressure and ethical decision-making. Tommy Nguyen emerged as a leading forensic cyber investigator, specializing in institutional corruption. His techniques for tracking illegal networks were now taught at FBI headquarters and Interpol training facilities. Officer Martinez, now Deputy Commissioner of Corrections for 3 states, implemented Jalen's principles across entire regional systems. His memoir, The Thin Blue Line Inside, became required reading for correctional officers nationwide. International delegations from 34 countries visited Jalen's community center to study his methods. The Ghost Protocol adapted to different cultures while maintaining core principles. Strength protects, wisdom guides, discipline conquers chaos. Statistical analysis showed profound societal changes in communities where silent strength operated. At-risk youth violent crime down 48%, high school graduation rates up 34%, employment among former inmates up 67%, family reunification success up 78%. Jalen Ghost Hunter proved that one person's courage to stand with principle, not violence, can transform entire systems. His story reminds us that real strength isn't about defeating enemies. It's about turning enemies into allies, victims into survivors, broken systems into forces for justice. In a world that often celebrates loud confrontation, Jalen Hunter chose a disciplined response. In a system designed to break spirits, he chose to build bridges. In a place where violence seemed the only language, he spoke fluently in justice and redemption. His story isn't just about one SEAL defeating one bully. It's about all of us choosing who we want to be when facing impossible odds. Sometimes the quietest person carries the loudest truth. Real warriors create peace. They don't just win wars. Derek Collins learned too late that fear is temporary, but respect is eternal. Jalen Hunter proved that sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one who chooses not to fight.